Welcome, everyone, to Down the Middle. I know you thought we were gone, but we're not gone. We're back. We're here again. Much like we hope the pro wrestling industry will be.
Now we're starting to sound more and more like Ric Flair's career.
I'm back. I'm back. And audio check is good. This podcast is brought to you by Stevie Wicks. We'll talk about them more in a moment. But now, damn it, Brian. You know how long it's been since I've actually sat down? Well, that's not true. I sat down and watched some last week. Since I sat down and watched a full week of professional wrestling.
I don't know, because it's been a minute for me too.
It's, you know, we had an episode we did earlier where we were talking about how watching wrestling feels like a chore. And for the most part, it's not as bad as it was. I do want to just go ahead and get that part out of the way. It's not as bad as it was. That's thanks due in large part, ironically, to WWE, who we were complaining about the most at the time we were last complaining. But, it's, and it's especially sad because as we're still prepping to do our massive all-in review, but as I'm watching it, in particular, because it's the match I watched most recently, the Kenny Omega versus Pentagon Jr. match. You know, at first I was thinking, I'm probably just being nostalgic, but I gotta say, back in 2018, that match was so much better in every element. And I do believe part of it was the fact that, well, for one, back in 2018, it was like, oh, we've never seen this before. You've never seen those two, and you weren't exactly sure if you ever would see those two, you know, in a ring together. But frankly, even the match itself, like, I know Jim Cornette would, you know, have something to say about it, but it was way better than what we see in AEW currently, and I'll go more in depth into it when we talk about All In, but man, like, even there's moments in the match that you wouldn't think these two would do, i.e., for example, they're trying to keep it in the ring. There's a moment where Pentagon does a dive, but it makes sense because he catches Kenny off guard with it, and then Kenny goes for the Terminator dive, and Pentagon gets back in the ring and rocks him. There are just things that make sense, and that's why it was good. Now, I haven't watched Full Gear yet. I don't know, did you watch Full Gear?
I've seen some snip clips here and there, but not too much.
I initially wasn't going to, but now after hearing about some of the matches, I'm more inclined to check it out. I hear that in particular Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page was good, but you sent me a clip.
I heard that match tore it up that night. Like, tore it up.
Well, I'm taking it with a grain of salt because it was a death match, and I know you love death match wrestling, but let's be honest here. How many times have we heard, oh, this death match was amazing, match of the year?
True.
And I'm not taking away from what the guys did at all. I never, ever, ever would do that. But was there, and I can't answer this question because I haven't been watching religiously, but was there any build up to this, or was it just they went out there and tried to kill each other for 25, 30 minutes?
Exactly.
And I don't know. I hope there was build up for as much as they did to each other and to themselves. Although I will say I saw one screenshot of Hangman doing the Triple H thing, but with blood. I mean, it was pay-per-view, so I'll give him that. At least it was on pay-per-view, but I don't know if that was necessary.
I didn't see that part, so I'm not sure.
Oh, and then we've got, you've been here before, and I remember, Hakeem, haha. Hakeem, the Hangman match was the match of the night for me. Good to know. Maybe you can answer this, Hakeem. Was there a build-up to it, or was it just somewhat of a random pairing? I'm very curious, but I hear good things. But anyway, the clip you sent me it interestingly highlights one of the few really, really exciting things in wrestling, and one of the few things that's making wrestling good right now, was MJF at the media scrum post Full Gear. Now, I will say at the beginning of the clip, I thought we were getting the real Max Friedman. But there were a couple things he throws in that I love it because MJF is a master of making you not sure if it's real or not. Because there's a couple of things where I'm like, oh, well, that's a joke. But then he's so good at what he does. And the best way I can describe it is I think we got a little bit of both. I think we got a real emotional Max Friedman who had enough sense to stay in character and further storylines while putting everybody and the company over and just...
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, it definitely had me on the seat of thinking, like, is this like the real MJF, or is this the character MJF? Like, what are we getting? Are we getting a mixture of both? Are we getting like the real MJF?
I think we're getting a mix of both, very similar to a bunch of really great moments you can think of. But the promo with Roman Reigns and John Cena comes to mind, where it started out as a work, but I think we got a little bit of the real from each one.
Yeah.
You know, the whole, it's called a promo, son. If you're going to be the champ, you're going to have to, like... And that, to me, is when pro wrestling is at its best. When there's... As Jim Cornette, I'm going to butcher this, so it's not a direct quote, but Jim Cornette always says something. He's like, you give them enough information that they know is true, they being the audience. You give the audience enough information that they know is true, and then you work it a little bit so that they're not sure because you've already given credibility. And CM Punk was a master at this too.
Oh, yeah.
Hakeem is a... There was build-up. Swerve went to Hangman's house. It was like the time Samoa Joe went to AJ Styles' house. Okay. For those of you who remember back when TNA was good. Well, good. As in better than... I still make the case there was a time when TNA was very, very good.
Oh, I will definitely agree. Like, I will 100% agree TNA at one point was better than All Wrestling. And this would have been like 2009, 2010 era.
I watched a little bit from 06, and I don't know that it was necessarily better. Because WWE, I know a lot of people disagree with me. WWE in 2006 was actually really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
It was very good. And I'm not saying TNA was bad, but I mean, I don't think TNA was necessarily better then, although that's about the time Kurt Angle came and gave them a little bit more legitimacy. Like, not that they were illegitimate, because you already had AJ Styles, and I believe Sting was already there at that time.
Yeah, Kurt went over there, and actually, fun fact: Kurt was supposed to win the ECW World Title before he went over to TNA.
Oh my god, I'm sorry. Hakeem just commented again. Said I haven't been watching AEW much, but man, that was good. But had one scene with the blood that made me a bit sick. Was it when Hangman was spitting the blood up? Because yeah, I saw the screenshot of that, and I was like, I'm not particularly squeamish, but that was a little gross. But yeah, man, I'd love to know your opinion, Hakeem, because I assume that you're a, pretty regular wrestling fan if you're watching this podcast. Because I'm in the same boat. I haven't really been watching AEW at all lately because, I mean, it's just I just don't care.
I gotta agree with you. Like, I have a few friends that I talk to also, like, about wrestling, and like they're like huge AEW guys. They're like they watch AEW more than they do like any kind of other wrestling promotion, and like they're telling me that they're like to the point where they're getting ready to just stop watching AEW.
And part of me, I shouldn't say I feel guilty, but part of me is hesitant. Like, I want to start making a conscious effort to actually watch AEW because I remember what life was like without an alternative, and I don't want to go back to that. But part of me kind of does, because, and here's what I mean by that. If you remember, I'd say between the years of 2016, 2018, maybe a little bit of 2019, but mostly between like 2016, 2018, I would say, when it was really, really big, where, people would say things like WWE's the only game in town. I'm like, no, they're definitely the biggest game in town, but they're definitely not the only. I remember when NJPW was the clear number 2, but you also had Ring of Honor was still, not necessarily thriving, but it was there, and they had some. I argued for those 2 years, without a shadow of a doubt, Wrestle Kingdom was way better than WrestleMania. Way better. From 2016 to 2018. I will argue it.
You honestly, you're probably right, because there was a lot of watered down feuds going on.
And then Hakeem responded again. He said, "Same here. It's been meh, mainly because of the lack of storyline." That's what I'm saying. I posted a short the other day. It's the first short I've uploaded in a long time. I apologize for that, people. We've got multiple podcasts in the network, and there is one. I'm not going to lie. There is one that is the main priority because it's the closest to getting monetized. And then once that happens, we'll keep bringing it down the line. But I promise I will make. I'm doing some things so that I'm able to upload more content consistently across all platforms. And one of our videos got taken down. I have to fix that. And it's the one I was most proud. I was most proud of the thumbnail on that one. So I was really, really mad when I found that they took it off. But anyway, the point I'm making is we uploaded a short the other day where all I said was the secret to great pro wrestling is not a secret. This man says it all the time. And then I just laid it out. It's basic. You give people. The example I gave was you take a match that, say, like, going back to AEW, because I mentioned The Rock versus Hogan, where what's happening in the ring may not necessarily be exceptional from a physical standpoint, but every wrestling fan knows that match. Every wrestling fan has seen that match. And if you were watching that match live, you were on the edge of your seat. You wanted to see what was going to happen. You didn't care. Nobody cares that Hulk Hogan didn't do a tope suicida or a moonsault. It was never going to happen. But the leg drop had people jumping out of their seats. And it's the same leg drop we've seen across decades. We've seen it hundreds of times. And yet that, because of what was built up, and that's Shawn Michaels could get a place to erupt with a super kick. The Young Bucks have to do 20 in a match to get anything out of people. That's a bit facetious, but my point still. And then the other match I talked about, which was Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, and I said, don't get me wrong, the match was great from a physical standpoint. They're both incredible athletes in the ring, and I will never say otherwise. But what made that match as good as it was the build up to it. By the time that pay-per-view came around, you wanted more than anything to see Hangman Page kick the living crap out of Kenny Omega. And as much as I disliked heel Kenny, the process worked.
For some reason, my sound's actually real weird. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, like my sound is like really, really low for you.
Huh, that's weird.
It was just fine, and then just all of a sudden just went real low.
Huh. I hope it wasn't on my end. Am I good now?
I don't think it was. I think it's on my end, but...
Yeah, because for a second you were cutting out a smidge. But so anyway, that was my point. And that short it's still getting views and almost 100% likes. So that's what I hate. And it's not just wrestling. It's almost everything, because there's a very, very vocal minority. And unfortunately, trends are set by it. So there are a lot of people that are saying, like, AEW is perfect and they can do no wrong. Well, if AEW is perfect and can do no wrong, why are their ratings going down? And why have their ratings never been on par with WWE? And before you tell me a BS answer, I'm going, because Fox might be a little bit different. But let's look at Raw. Raw's on the USA Network. And I think I'll even be conservative. Let's say their average rating is probably like 1.5 million. That's a low average.
Around there.
Yeah.
A little higher.
That's a low average. AEW Dynamite's average viewing, I think, is about, I'll be gracious there, about 850 to 900,000. Now, I think that's been trending up, but I'd say as a whole over the past year. And that's their peak. That's not even an average. I'd say their average is probably more like 750 to 800. But my point being, they're both 2 hour, well, Raw's 3 hours, but they're both 2 to 3 hour programs on a cable network. And I think you can actually make a case that TBS might be bigger than USA. I don't know. But my point is, these are both wrestling programs that are on a cable network. So, and I get WWE has the name value, but at a certain level, wrestling is wrestling. And especially where WWE programming was at a certain point in time, I see no legitimate reason why AEW couldn't have overtaken them in the ratings if they had just given people good pro wrestling. Maybe I'm wrong, but
No, you're not wrong. I definitely agree.
well, good. I'm glad. Because by all means, if you disagree with me, tell me I'm nuts. But I've been a pro wrestling fan for a long time, not as long as some other people. So I'm definitely open and accepting of criticism on my point of view. But I mean, I remember the pro wrestling I think was great. But the funny thing is, almost everybody thinks those eras of pro wrestling are great. So there's something to that. And again, I like numbers. I'm a big numbers guy. There's a blog post on artemedia.org where I use AEW's ratings to prove my point about numbers. You can say it's great all you want, but if ratings are trending down, is it great? Is the entire rest of the world wrong?
Yeah, definitely numbers really show the proof. Numbers really have the proof and everything.
Yeah, and then Hakeem added, they start stories and drop them in a few weeks. Yeah, and I think that's. I don't think we called. I know somebody called it. I don't think it was us, but somebody called. I think it might have been Jim Cornette now that I think about it. You know, a lot of people have said this. They don't understand how Tony Khan is getting Booker of the Year because most of the storylines only last about 4 weeks at most. When AEW has a really ideal pay-per-view schedule because there are 4 or 5 a year, maybe a spot, a random one here and there. And they did what I thought they were going to do, and I advised against it. It looks like they're making Forbidden Door an annual pay-per-view. And if you're going to do that, well, no, it looks like they are. But here's the thing. If you're going to do that, just do what Ring of Honor or New Japan did. Just call it War of the Worlds. It was an annual thing they did. Don't call it Forbidden Door because now that name doesn't make any sense. And besides, now we've got the big secret, which was a secret to no one. Will Ospreay is all elite now.
Yeah, but he also said it's not going to be full time just yet until.
I don't think it's ever.
Up with New Japan.
I don't think it's ever going to be full time because if you can work for both, why wouldn't you? Because we know Tony Khan is such a mark that if any of his guys want to go to Japan, they'll be able to go to Japan. So why would you not work both? And now, if Will Ospreay is on the full-time roster for the number 2 American company, he can now command more money from New Japan, and he'll get it. So why would you not do both? And are you telling me, honestly, that if Kenny Omega wanted to headline the Tokyo Dome, both sides wouldn't be like, yeah, sure, absolutely, because we want money?
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
But the bad part about this is they have never had a good Forbidden Door pay-per-view because by the time they got around to it, there really was no Forbidden Door, and none of these were dream matches. These were all mid to high mid-card New Japan guys coming over and being like, hey, fight me, AEW person.
And see, that's one thing I really hate about the Forbidden Door, and I hate that's an annual thing because now that you have the Forbidden Door that's going to be an every year thing, not really going to be a Forbidden Door anymore.
No, it's a revolving door.
It is, because we're going to see some of the same guys come over from New Japan 2 weeks, 3 weeks before, maybe a month before Forbidden Door to start the little storylines that they have. When I think of a Forbidden Door, you think of people that you wouldn't expect. And that could be from indie promotions or not necessarily any promotions in general, just in general, people you wouldn't ever expect in AEW to like have that once in a lifetime match, like that dream match you'd want to see. And like it makes it harder because like you want to see dream matches from like WWE to for AEW, but there's got to be a lot of money involved in that because Triple H and them, they're not worried about AEW at all.
No, and I think so here was my, I think I touched on this before. I don't think it's been a mistake yet, but All In is another pay-per-view that I don't think should be an annual thing. And what I believe they should do, and Tony Khan's got the money to do this, make All In, don't even make it defined. Make it a surprise. If you want to have it 2 years in a row, great, but don't do it every single year. Make All In a repeat of what it was. Just an open invite for any professional wrestler. Hey, you got a name and you want to be on this card, get a hold of us. And they spent an entire year building that card. And I still made, this is why I wanted to do a review. There's not a bad match on that card. There are some things that I may not have booked the way they did, but none of the matches were bad.
I completely agree. I do agree with the All In thing where All In but it goes back to the same thing as the Forbidden Door.
Yeah, actually, I take so all whether you want to call it All In or Forbidden Door, but All In could be more of a celebration of independent wrestlers, whereas Forbidden Door could be like only big names.
Okay, I do agree on that. But if that's the case, then AEW needs to have the one show a year that's their big show. It's their WrestleMania.
Well, that's their Double or Nothing, or at least theoretically it should be. Because Double or Nothing was there, which, I mean, theoretically it should be All Out because that commemorates All In. And don't even get me started on the mistake of having those two pay-per-views, All In and All Out, a week apart. Which would make sense, though, because if All In is a celebration of independent wrestling, where it's an all names come forward. See, that's the one weird thing. Well, no, that's not even true because they had build up for all those matches. But it was interpromotional, see? Like, and everybody grew. And I think Triple H, now I don't think they would allow him to do this, but imagine, and it doesn't even have to be somebody huge. Like, let's imagine that, well, actually, let's imagine that somebody, like, okay, here's an idea for you. They're going to put the Ring of Honor World Championship up for grabs at All In or Forbidden Door or whatever. And this would make all the wrestling nerds pop. You have anybody who's in WWE who has been a Ring of Honor champion before, whether that be somebody like Seth Rollins who could come back as Tyler Black. They don't even have to use his name. Or, Damian Priest could come back as Punishment Martinez. And they don't have to win the belt, obviously, but imagine the pop. And if you set that precedent, if you knew that literally at All In, anything can happen. Like, you sell out every time you had it. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anybody big. And don't tell me, like, this would never happen. I want to preface this. But just imagine, if you will, if, let's say, Damian Priest came and won the Ring of Honor title and showed up on WWE television with that belt, don't tell me for a second the entire wrestling world wouldn't explode and it would benefit everyone. And before you say that would never happen, let's remember, Taz won the ECW title after he was contracted by WWE, showed up on Monday Night Raw with that belt.
Did he?
Yeah, he did in 2000, I believe. Because what it was, so for those who don't know, what had happened is Taz had already left ECW and signed with WWE. Mike Awesome, who was the ECW World Champion, left ECW while he was still the champion and appeared on WCW television. Now, here's the problem. He still had the belt. So Paul Heyman sued WCW and Turner Broadcasting, and the agreement was made. Mike Awesome was to show up at I forget what the event was. I think it might have been Living Dangerously. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember. but it was an event they had in Indianapolis, Indiana. And it's the first and only time, mind you. This is when Tommy Dreamer won the belt, I thought. I'm going to have to look that up. But regardless, Mike Awesome defended. No, Tommy Dreamer didn't win it. Taz won it. I'm sorry. Mike Awesome lost the ECW belt, and Taz was a surprise show up. That was when ECW and WWE had a good working relationship.
Yeah.
So Taz won that belt and had it for a while, and then he dropped the belt to Dreamer, I think a few weeks or a month later. But the whole point of it was everybody figured Mike Awesome was going to lose it. So, it's a blow-off match. What they didn't expect was Taz to show up and to win it. Okay, so we got Hakeem. By the way, Hakeem, thank you for your comments. We love comments. It helps drive the conversation. But he said that would be awesome and help both promotions. It would. And then he said, imagine if Damian cashing his money in the bank on the Ring of Honor belt. It'll never happen, but I wish it would. I don't think that contract would qualify because I think it actually stipulates that's only for a WWE championship. But wouldn't it be interesting though if this is pure fantasy booking, and it would not fly in WWE. But let's say Damian Priest as Mr. Money in the Bank wins the Ring of Honor title, or no, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. If Tyler Black came back, won the Ring of Honor title, and then let's say he still has the World Heavyweight Championship and he's got both. Damian cashes in, but for the Ring of Honor title.
Oh, Lord.
It would never happen. But it would be fun. It would be so cool to see that. Or maybe Seth gets out of it by saying he didn't specify which belt. Here, take this. Actually, that'd probably be more feasible. God, that would be funny.
That would be great.
And now Damian's like, well, I have this belt.
That would be great. How about Ronda showing up at Ring of Honor?
Oh, was that at Ring of Honor?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I know she was on the Indies, but
yeah, she did a tag match with can't remember her name.
Huh. I did not know that was Ring of Honor.
Yeah, she did tag match with somebody on the Indies. I don't remember who it was. And she showed up at Ring of Honor Friday night or whenever Ring of Honor was last.
Huh. Interesting. I think it's very interesting that it was Ring of Honor and not AEW.
Sure.
Maybe there's hope for Tony yet. Because one of the other things is Ring of Honor has basically just become dark, and I don't like that at all.
Pretty much.
Which, listen, if for some reason Warner Brothers Discovery doesn't want Ring of Honor on television too, at least put it on a streaming service. Other than Honor Club, put it on Max. Come on.
Yeah, just do it already so we can watch Ring of Honor all we want.
Well, and that's just it, because I can't watch Ring of Honor, not legally anyway. And it's hard to, Impact can attest to this, it's really hard to drum up interest in a product when no one can watch it.
Agreeable.
I would also really like to see Lucha Underground make a comeback, because under different management, mind you, because I don't like how they really, really screwed over certain wrestlers.
Well, I didn't know this so recently. I guess Chavo Guerrero helped run it.
Yeah, he was. I don't remember his exact role, but yeah, I know he was involved. But I know that he wasn't in the contracts and all that. Because for those who don't know, there were several. In fact, Thunder Rosa, who was Cobra Moon, yeah, in Lucha Underground, along with Ricochet, who was Prince Puma. Which this made no sense, because I'm pretty sure that everyone who had a contract dispute was also under a mask. But basically, their contract stated that they could not appear on other television shows while Lucha Underground was airing. But the problem was they shot Lucha Underground in a matter of weeks, and it ran for months on a normal weekly episodic television schedule. So,
but if they're under mask in that and then not under mask somewhere else, I don't see what the issue is.
well, they weren't allowed to, apparently. That's why they sued. Ricochet in particular, because he has some pretty distinctive tattoos. But who cares? They weren't using the same names. Most of them were under mask. Like, I didn't know Thunder Rosa was Cobra Moon until like a year and a half ago. Which now makes a lot of sense. Oh, and Luchasaurus was there too, who never is without a mask. So I guess, but he wasn't there as Luchasaurus. He was there as Vibra, and he died in character, in universe. But man, I miss Lucha Underground, man. I still sing its praises to this day. It has some of my favorite matches and moments because I'm not much of one for stunts on their own, but man, Lucha Underground had a way of, for it always being Lucha style, for the big shows, they could pull it off. There's one of my favorite moments of Lucha Underground. It's when, oh gosh, who was it? It was Angelico, Ivelisse, and somebody, it was Matt Cross, but I don't, Son of Havoc was his name in Lucha Underground. They were the unlikely trios champions who, over the course of the season, who, imagine that, storytelling, grew together as a team because they won the championships by happenstance. And Ivelisse was injured for the bulk of it. I don't think she was legitimately injured, but again, storyline. They defended their championships. I believe it was Ultima Lucha 1. And Angelico did, I don't even know how high up. It was at least 20 feet. It was high. He jumped off of this, I don't even know what you would call it. Like it's a built-in office, but it's about 20 feet in the air. And he jumps off of it, does a flying crossbody, and it's not a small distance. He goes more forward than down. Mm-hmm. And just, oh my God. I think about how bad it would have been if that had gone wrong somehow. Like he would have died. He could have died. He could have died. But I just, wow. I still go back and watch the clips. And then I see what AEW did with Angelico, who is good. Angelico is good. Jack Evans is good. And yet, you know? Oh, thanks, Hakeem. He said, no problem. You guys have a great podcast. Well, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends.
Tell them all.
Like, share, and subscribe, and make sure to
share.
And make sure to take your vitamins and snap into a Slim Jim. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love me some Lucha Underground. Got a little weird at times, but I mean, it was good. And then Santos Escobar, King Cuerno, some of great matches. And Ricochet is Ricochet is Ricochet. But as Prince Puma, and like the matches he had with Rey Mysterio, who I would never thought I would see Rey Mysterio anywhere but WWE. And then he was at All In too.
Yeah. I didn't think about that one too. What about I very distinctly remember this because this is when I was watching the Underground. Pentagon Jr. and Vampiro.
It's on my list of top matches. Absolutely loved it. And it's a clinic, honestly, and you might, I want to know if you agree with me on this. To me, it was a clinic on how an older wrestler and a younger wrestler can have a match that is not stylistically out for one or the other. Because Pentagon is obviously moving a little slower, and you can tell Vampiro's calling the match, but they both did such a damn good job. And at no point did it look like Pentagon was carrying him, even though he was, because Vampiro, just with age and being a little rusty, but Vampiro brought it, man. And Vampiro was so giving to Pentagon because you could tell his goal in that match was to make Pentagon look like a rock star, and he absolutely succeeded.
Oh yeah. Like at that point, Pentagon looked like a world champion anywhere he went.
That's the reason Pentagon got to where he was. I still maintain a lot of those guys became stars in the United States because of Lucha Underground. And for that, I will always be thankful. As problematic as management was, so many of those guys, Santos Escobar, Pentagon Jr., Ray Phoenix, it probably put Ricochet over the edge into be able to get into WWE. Not that he never would have, but you know what I mean. Like it upped his star quality. Thunder Rosa, that was her first professional wrestling, not for first professional wrestling gig, but I think that was her first like paid television wrestling gig.
Yeah.
And then even guys that are in AR Fox, he was in Lucha Underground. Swerve Strickland, he was Killshot in Lucha Underground. Evilise, although even though she's not in AEW anymore, there were so many, and then there's guys that are still big in Mexico. Just it was so good. I miss Lucha Underground so much. As a Hakeem again, Lucha Underground was more entertaining than I thought it would be. Yeah, I found it by accident. Actually, funny story. I actually found it on. I can't remember if it was. I think it was Univision, the Spanish-speaking network first. So I thought it was a Mexican production because on the Mexican broadcast it was Vampiro speaking Spanish and then another gentleman whose name I can't remember, but he was I think he was a commentator for AAA. I didn't even know there was an English version for the longest time, so I'm watching episodes in Spanish, and this is before I spoke any Spanish, and yet I could still understand the gist of what was happening.
Yeah, I think I caught it because one of my buddies was watching it, and I went over to his house and noticed it, and then that's when I seen the Pentagon Junior Vampiro match, and then that's when I started watching it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I show that match to people who've never seen pro wrestling before, and they're like, "Wow, I might have to give this a shot." And then I say, "Well, it's not on anymore, but you can still see Pentagon." Yeah, Akeem, again, I saw Angelico there, and he was amazing. There were so many wrestlers that I saw there for the first time. And nobody in that show was bad. Nobody. Everybody. Now, granted, I know they had the benefit of editing, so there were probably at least a couple of botches that were covered up, but still, I mean, you cannot fake what they were doing. It was pure, and actually, they leave in some botches. Oh, Io Sky was there.
So was Brian Cage.
Brian Cage. This is the first place. The first place I saw Brian Cage was Lucha Underground.
Was it Tessa Blanchard in?
I believe briefly. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and look at that. I think so. I want to say.
I think she was in there for a very short time.
I think she was. I'd have to go back and double check that, but I think so. But yeah, man, I mean, it's damn, Lucha Underground was good. I would love to see that come back. I would love. Season 1 especially. Season 1 of Lucha Underground was perfect. I wouldn't have changed a thing. And then, like, a lot of people don't remember this, but I remember very distinctly I wouldn't even call it a feud, but the storyline with Aerostar and Drago. On paper, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. But on the show, it was so well done. And not even in English.
I don't think I remember ever seeing that, but it's something I can go back and look.
Yeah, gosh, now I just want to go back. Oh, and then something I did want to touch on. Lucha Underground also did some really cool stuff. Like, I think that was a case of having television writers actually. There was the right mix of television writers and pro wrestling booking because they had a lot of really cool concepts, like the entire concept of the Gift of the Gods Championship, where, holy crap, you can have multi-man matches for a medallion, but you get all those medallions. And once all those medallions are taken, you have another big, and they weren't battle royals. I think they were elimination matches, which elimination matches are way better than battle royals. Fight me, I don't care. And then the winner of that gets the Gift of the Gods belt, which was a really cool concept and looked awesome.
It did. Do remember seeing a picture of that, and something else I remember from Lucha Underground is that they did all these such crazy and high spots and unbelievable things that you never expect to see, and they done it and they made it work.
Yeah,
And
and
you
consistent.
did any kind of yeah, it was consistent. I mean, they didn't botch any of them that we've seen of, and they're always on the market, just crazy.
Yeah, now like I said, they had the benefit of editing, but everything it was like they took all the elements of lucha libre that worked, and whether through editing or booking, got rid of all the elements that are problematic, and it just worked, man. It was so good.
And here's my thing: is I love storytelling, and you can't do storytelling like AW tries to does in 4 weeks or a month. I love 6 month storylines,
Love them.
3 months storylines. If you have two big guys, not necessarily big guys, but like two big superstars, and they're working together and they're working the crowd together and they're getting the ratings, push it to a 6 month storyline. Now, if you got two semi guys, yeah, you could do 2 month storyline, 3 month storyline. But
But
the
then
4 week
if
storyline,
yeah, it
four
just
week storyline just doesn't work unless, oh, we need a quick little storyline because this guy's hurt. We need to give him a couple weeks.
well, and not only
Sometimes that's
that, you
okay.
can yeah, and you can do short-term storylines that will work if they can go like okay, I'm going to give AEW some credit here where they turned chicken shit into chicken salad. They were debuting Jade Cargill in that mixed tag with Shaquille O'Neal, and it was supposed to be Cody and Brandy, if, for those who don't remember. But then they found out Brandy was pregnant. So, real quick, they had to get a substitute. And they did a little workaround and brought in Red Velvet, who up to that point, not nobody had heard of, but she wasn't a name in the company. But they created a story in that, and then after that match, they continued it. And Red Velvet had things to do because they took that story, that short story that they had to tell out of necessity, but then they carried it. And somewhere along the way, AEW lost the ability to carry the story forward. It's like, oh, it's done now.
Yep.
And yes, you're right, Hakeem. John Morrison was a great heel. That was the first time I saw Taya Valkyrie. Was in Lucha Underground. Man, I'm just gonna we gotta do a Lucha Underground appreciation episode sometime.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to have to go back and start watching some highlights and stuff.
I will speak Spanish in that episode if you want it, America.
I will sit here while you do it and no comprende it.
It's okay because Matt Stryker helped provide the English commentary, and Matt Stryker is really good on commentary, by the way.
Underrated. He was good when he did it for ECW too. I think for a little bit.
He was very good, and I thought Matt Stryker was underrated as a performer too. Nobody takes a DDT like Matt Stryker. And not only that, I mean, he was just a good chicken shit heel. I think he wasn't underutilized in ECW. They used him a lot. And I loved the gimmick. It was stupid in the best possible way. He was a teacher who he was just a jerk teacher who also wrestled and then took it in the ring and did the same thing.
That he did.
Why is he not working somewhere? Does he not want to? That's got to be it.
I don't know. I don't know what he's doing anymore these days. I haven't heard anything unless he went back to being a teacher.
Maybe. That's what Shane Douglas did. Not a lot of people know that. Shane Douglas was a teacher before, and after he retired from wrestling, he went back to being a teacher. Hangman Page was also a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's making that sweet, sweet AEW money. Which is not like he was teaching when he was still in New Japan and Ring of Honor. He had stopped teaching before then, but you know, Brian, one of the things that can help you enjoy your pro wrestling is when your house doesn't smell like wet assholes. And in order to help your house not smell like wet assholes, Stevie Wicks can help with that. With their new, you can't even see that because of the fire. Don't worry, I'm going to play you some ASMR here in a second. You can have a fantastic smelling house and give thanks with the Grateful and Gather Thanksgiving Woodwick candle set from Stevie Wicks. Available now until the day before Thanksgiving. And if you use promo code DOWN at checkout, you save 10% off of your entire order. And I'm not supposed to tell you this, but that code never expires, so you can use it every time you shop. But what's cool about these Woodwicks is just imagine you're watching your pro wrestling and you just want to relax a bit on that commercial break where you hit the mute button and then you get to hear. Wake up, we're not done with the podcast yet. But I saw you going to sleep there, Brian.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
What? Well, like I said,
just made me so sleepy.
I don't know if you could hear it, but it's a crackling, and they have 2 wood wicks in them, so you get double the crackle.
You could hear it.
I know they're very loud in person. Like I'm always never sure, and I was also trying not to set my microphone on fire. That would have been a bad night. Yeah, that's some good ASMR. Thanks, buddy. Oh, Hakeem, I love you being in our chat, my friend. Can I call you my friend? Because you've been here before. I feel like we know you. And you told me how to pronounce your name correctly. So, yes, use promo code DOWN to get your Thanksgiving. And Christmas candles are also available if Thanksgiving's not your thing. Christmas candles are on there now, too. And that code still applies. So, and they make fantastic gifts. They make fantastic gifts. Who doesn't want a Christmas candle at Christmas time? Every woman on the planet and some of the guys. So it's a pretty good bet. That's all I'm saying. But you know what else is a pretty good bet? Betting on Cody Rhodes. Really? Not? No? You disagree?
What are you betting on Cody Rhodes?
Just that it will be a stellar performance. Okay, yeah, I guess historically betting on Cody Rhodes isn't necessarily the best bet if you're talking about winning. He wins in the end, though. He beat Brock Lesnar.
I mean, that's about it.
Hey. They won tag titles too, didn't they?
Yeah, we're still waiting on them to finish the story.
We've been waiting for a whole year, Cody.
We've been waiting longer than a year.
Hakeem, thank you for that. He said, I love being here. It's like sitting down and talking some wrestling with friends. That's actually what this show was supposed to be. That's why we love audience involvement, because we usually have a loose title. But if you've watched more than one episode, you know we go all over the map. It just comes up. So that's ultimately what we want this podcast to be. And I look forward to the day when I have to tell people they have to use super chats because there's too many people in the feed. Not because I want to make the money, although, I mean, I do want to make the money. But I want the chat to be that crazy to where we have to have people do super chats. Otherwise, we can't keep up with it. That's what I look forward to.
One of these days, we'll have it.
But if we have 2 or 3 people in the chat, that's great. Because that's a full-blown conversation. And I apologize. My throat's starting to get dry. So you might hear it in my voice. Anywho. So yeah, we haven't really done that much complaining about wrestling. I mean, a little bit. We've been hearkening back to the good old days. Well, yeah, I guess we can complain a little bit on Cody Rhodes because now I'm not sure. I'm one of the people who still wishes he'd won it at WrestleMania. I understand why they didn't, but
so here's the new rumors I'm hearing about that.
Okay.
So the big rumor I'm hearing is it's gonna be WrestleMania 40, or is it WrestleMania 40 next?
I think so.
So the big rumor is there's 2 of them. That one, Roman's going to keep it and break Hogan's record.
I wouldn't be surprised for that.
And 2, Cody will finally beat him, but it'll be in an I Quit match.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
Which I do also, because it's not Roman's not getting pinned.
Yeah, so that's a good exit strategy to get the belt on Cody. And I was thinking about this the other day. So imagine, if you will, let's say Cody wins the belt at WrestleMania, and then eventually, and this could be how WWE gets some credibility to that World Heavyweight Championship. So let's say Cody wins the belt, and then not immediately after, but not long after, Seth Rollins calls him out and says, "Hey, man, you know, you're the Universal Champion. Well, I'm the World Champion. You know, why don't we see whose belt means the most?"
I mean, you could do that. You could.
Are you driving?
That I am.
Okay. Well,
building.
Okay, you're just going to a different building. You're not like, okay, let's not have a wreck on air. Although if you do have a wreck on air, we're gonna put that all over social media as long as you're okay.
Yeah, I would be okay with that. No, I'm just driving to the front building.
Okay, that's good. So, but anyway, Seth Rollins calls him out, and then think about the buildup. They don't do it immediately. Again, there's some talking back and forth, and then finally they have a belt, not a belt for belt match, but a match where you get bragging rights. How different would that be?
But that just sounds like such a Survivor Series type thing, though.
Survivor Series later in the year, man.
Good. But you really think they're going to let Cody hold it that long?
I think they should.
I think they should, too. But do you think Seth is really going to hold it that long?
Maybe not. And I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be Seth, but it would be good. But now the one flaw in that storyline is all Cody would have to say is like, well, Seth, when I came back from the B leagues that you talked about, or so you say, I beat you at WrestleMania.
You putting that in there.
I got that, didn't you?
That got me. That was pretty good. At WrestleMania, baby.
I came back and I beat you at WrestleMania, Seth freaking Rollins. I beat you with a freaking... How did he beat him? With a Cody cutter?
Yeah.
With a little extra butter and a completely torn pectoral muscle, baby.
Now that's when he beat him at Hell in a Cell.
That's right, it was Hell in a Cell. Yeah, I know, Hakeem. I agree. He says, I have a bad feeling that Cody isn't holding the belt for too long, which is a shame. Not to take anything away from Roman Reigns, because I think he, not single-handedly, but he was integral in resurrecting WWE, for me at least.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think that's disputable. Ironically, when they just let Roman be Roman. Imagine that.
I don't think anybody expected Roman to hold the title this long.
Not initially, but now it's like he's got to beat Hogan's record. WWE has to have Roman Reigns beat Hogan's record to basically solidify, like defend their decision to make Roman the guy. Like they have to, which is hilarious to me because they're like, Roman Reigns is breaking all these records. It's like, did we forget that it's a storyline?
Well, here's my thing too. Like Hogan defended the title a whole hell of a lot more than Roman has. He's worked a whole hell of a lot more shows than Roman has.
Hogan even wrestled. Oh, what does he say? Hogan had this thing where he was talking about how he was actually able to travel back in time, coming from Japan to the U.S. or from the U.S. to Japan. So I don't remember. I wish I could remember because it was funny.
I also hear that Roman's body is in a lot of rough shape.
It has to be.
Like from like the leukemia and everything, and then it coming back.
And you know what? I always forget about because he just looks so damn healthy all the time. I forgot about the leukemia. Yeah, he's got to be. Everybody's like, well, not everybody. Some people give Roman shit. It's like, oh, he never defends the belt. I'm like, okay, it wasn't that long ago when the world champion wasn't on TV every week. It was
I
a
mean,
treat to see them.
I mean, Roman still isn't on TV every week. I mean, he wasn't on TV for like a whole month and a half at one point.
Well, right, that's what I'm saying though, is we got used to the Cena era where
Yeah.
I get it, it works for that character, but unfortunately, because of how long he was on top, and Batista wasn't much better, although I don't think Batista was necessarily on every week when he was the World Heavyweight Champion, but Cena was constantly on TV.
But yeah, I hear his body is in a lot of bad shape. So I do think the reason why they're doing all this part time stuff is so that they can go so hard when he is in the ring.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? That was the logic. That was the logic of the world champion, even especially in a system like the NWA where you had multiple territories. The NWA champion traveled, yes, but he wasn't. I mean, back then that was a little bit different. It's because he did work more than was perceived, but you know, NWA world champ wasn't taking bumps left, right, and center. It just wasn't happening because he had to be able to, you know, keep wrestling.
Yeah.
And same with Roman. Like, I don't want Roman on TV taking bumps every week. That's silly. I'd like to get away from that. Just like I don't want MJF on TV every week taking bumps. And oh my God, he's not.
But hands down, and I really gotta give it to MJF, man. I really got since he has became world champion and right before he was world champion, I think this MJF right now is the best MJF we've ever seen.
I never thought I would agree with that, but I guess I was so hesitant to let go of him as like a hardcore heel because we just don't have heels anymore.
I don't know. I don't want to say he's not a heel though.
No, I know he's a heel, but like he's got a best friend now and he's genuinely heartfelt for the fans. Now, nobody can do that shtick he's doing quite like MJF. And you just reminded me of a question I have for you later, but still talking about MJF. I don't dislike it. I'm not gonna lie. I like it. There's been some legitimately comedic moments. I think Adam Cole kind of looks like a moron, but it's working. I'm not taking anything away from it. But MJF is so damn good. And now he can even say, like, you want me to be a heel? Great, I'm a heel. You want me to be a babyface? MJF can be a babyface, but I'm still a scumbag. Yeah, I think he's literally said as much because he hasn't forgotten his character, which I think happens all too often when there's heel face turns.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm a good guy now. Whereas, like, no, you were a pretty terrible person. That doesn't all just go away. You can tell a story where that fades away slowly.
I mean, Seth Rollins is doing a perfect job like he is now too. Like he was that heel where he took out Malachi Black's eye and he took out Rey Mysterio's eye. But like that transition to him to being almost pretty much a babyface now.
As much as I dislike the gimmick, you're right. And it's not that he's a babyface; it's what he's doing. It's weird to me. And again, just like the Dom and Rhea thing, I know I'm wrong, but it's weird to me. Like, I thought that somebody got into a comment fight with me on that because when I put that short where I was saying that I didn't like the Dom and Rhea stuff, but I put it on TikTok and somebody was arguing with me in the comments. I'm like, dude, I said at the beginning that I know I'm wrong. I'm just telling you what I see, and I don't get why people like it, but they obviously do. I'm not arguing with you because I know I'm wrong here.
Yeah.
Like, people don't sing somebody's theme song like that if he's not over. I just think it's weird.
Well, buddy, I've got 2 minutes and I got to clock in.
Okay, so my question for you real quick and then we'll close up is who do you think is behind the devil mask?
Who do I think it is?
Yep.
I think it's Britt Baker.
I think it's MJF.
I really think it's Britt Baker. And the reason why I say that is because when they were doing that song for all the girls in AEW, when it came to the scene with Britt Baker, she had her fingers up like this doing the devil horns.
Oh, maybe. Although I did read a rumor that CM Punk is wearing the devil mask, and as I don't think that's the case, but boy, would I love that.
He's one of the big rumors to be the fifth man for War Games
See
at Survivor.
that one I believe a little bit more.
Because it's supposed to be in Chicago,
Yeah.
and they just had a promo last week on Raw where Cody and Jay were talking, and there was 5 stars on the back. What did CM Punk have on his tights?
Well, but that's because that's his Chicago flag. But
Yeah.
maybe. I would love to see. I just want CM Punk back on TV. Now, it'll rub salt in the wound for Tony Khan if CM Punk goes back to WWE because it's like, see, you stupid.
Well, the other one's Orton's the rumor, so I can see Orton being more true than CM Punk.
I think I would rather see, just for AEW's sake, I think I would rather see CM Punk as the man in the devil mask. Because, oh my gosh, couldn't you imagine doing a program with Punk as the heel and MJF as the babyface?
Yeah.
They can pick up right where they left off, too. That's the beauty of it. But anyway, I will close it because I know you got to get to work. Oh, God. Hakeem James Ellsworth is behind the mask. He's too tall. The devil's too tall. That'd be hilarious. That would be what we call a short-term pop. But anyway, thank you guys. Thanks, everybody, for enjoying this episode of Down the Middle. We have a surprise coming up for you this coming week. I won't spoil it. It'll be a surprise. So subscribe to the channel so you get notified. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you prefer to listen to our podcast, you can check it out on all the audio streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Amazon. If they got podcasts, iHeartRadio, then we're on there, more than likely. And if not, you can check us right here on YouTube Music if you'd rather listen than watch, or right here on YouTube. We love it all. And remember to get your Thanksgiving and or Christmas candles at Stevie Wicks. Use promo code DOWN to get 10% off your order and help us keep the lights on over here. Thank you and good night. Brian, have a good night at work, and we will see you guys later because I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.